I think by the end of Trump's second term, so 3 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw $500,000 Bitcoin, which seems unfeasible at the moment. But again,
not to me.
What's your reasoning behind that?
No, not to me at all. And I think it's because
Really?
you find one central bank that is in favor of Bitcoin right now on planet Earth. There
Zero.
is none.
Doesn't exist.
It's zero.
It's ideologically opposed.
No central bank wants Bitcoin to be successful. These people do not like us. They don't want us to succeed. The only reason that we are seeing the corporate adoption that we're having right now, the ETFs, even the Bitcoin treasury companies, is there's money. It's fiat dollars for them. Do you think those ETFs, do you think that Larry Fink really believes in Bitcoin?
That's the key point.
There are going to be people that are waiting as Bitcoin goes past 150, 175, 80, and then eventually crosses 200,000. There are going to be people still waiting for, 65,000 Bitcoin, and they're going to be toast.
What has been the most difficult thing for you holding Bitcoin over the years?
That's an easy question.
Man, that was very hard hitting, George.
It's just us, kids. It's just us.
Yeah, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin IRL. Today, I'm joined with George Bodine. I really enjoyed our conversation last time. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Oh, you're welcome, bud. I'm excited about it. Last time, like I was saying, I had a couple of technical difficulties, but this time I think everything's set. I've got a beer here. I mean, life's good, I'm pumped. I've got a lot to talk about and a lot happening, a lot of positive things going on with Bitcoin. I mean, there's some negative things out there too, but just overall, I mean, this is just it's going to be a great cycle. In fact, we can talk about that because I actually posted today for the first time, I think the 4-year cycle is dead.
Yeah. It's, so you don't think we've topped, because that's what I'm hearing from people, basically. This is, it was not a good sign that Bitcoin didn't continue. And you're saying basically, Q4 is going to be fantastic. It's going to keep going. That's your argument.
How I would frame this is that what you're seeing right now, this continuation that we've had, this stair-step surge, is really positive over the long run. I mean, think about the times that you've seen Bitcoin spike up really high. I mean, 10, 20% in a day and continue. I mean, what happens is you end up just running out of steam. I mean, it's too many coins that are being purchased up there, and eventually there are not enough buyers and sellers at that particular price point, and we collapse. I mean, it just happens repeatedly. This cycle's different. I mean, if you zoom out, if you look at the Bitcoin 4-year cycles and just go into a zoomed out view over the life history of Bitcoin, you can see it even in that chart. But there are some other charts too that are showing it. In fact, I was just on Glassnode and James Check's premium newsletter the other day, and he's got a chart. I think it's called the choppiness index. It shows it really clearly. This cycle is different. I mean, I'm finally to a point now where I am willing to say that I think the 4-year cycle is dead. Now, I will tell you, I don't think you'll have verification of that until, like, say, the end of this fiscal year here, or the end of this year. By the time 25 is over, we should know whether or not this is going to be if my thesis is correct here. You have to remember that most people were projecting that this is the month. October is the month in the 4-year cycle, traditionally, where we should have our peak and be done. And I don't think at all that this 120-some thousand peak is our peak. We've got some other analysts that have come on recently, upping their price points and their projections. Some of them are pretty wild, but Matt Hugin, he's been one of the more bullish proponents. And of course, we know Samson Mao is off the charts as far as bullishness. And I don't know. I am convinced that this is a different cycle, that we haven't seen the top. This is going to continue. There is a strong underpinning bid behind this cycle that we have never seen before. You can look at it just from the ETFs themselves. This week, we put in $1.2 billion in one day in the Bitcoin spot ETFs. That's incredible. I mean, you're looking at, if we're producing 450 coins on average per day, that's about 3 weeks of supply in one day just from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. that demand is unrelenting. It's been over 2 billion for a week now. And so I think that we're in a different market cycle. I think that the way we used to view the halvings is de minimis now. They really don't matter. And we are seeing a different kind of a bid. I'm sure you saw the news today, Nico. For the very first time, one of the Eurozone countries actually bought into Bitcoin today. And it's may not be spot Bitcoin in the sense that you and I hold Bitcoin, but you know what? It is Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoin ETF, just like the sovereign wealth fund for Dubai purchase. But this is a small amount, $9 million, I think, 1%. They got their little tiny toe in the pool there, but you know what? That doesn't mean that they're not going to continue. And I think that it's just the beginning of what we're going to see, a continuing in nation state adoption, whether it's actually on treasury sheets or whether it's in sovereign wealth funds. So, and one last thing I'm going to say before I let that go. Don't forget that there is a multiplier effect with Bitcoin. And you can use probably 5, maybe 5 to 6, somewhere in there for a multiplier effect. So when I say they put in $9 million, that increases our market cap probably about $45 million.
Yeah. So, so your base thesis is 4-year cycles are over. We're going much higher. Could you walk me through like why are you thinking that?
I'd say it's demand side more than anything else. We've had unrelenting sell side pressure. I'm surprised, if you want the truth, that we are where we are today. I've mentioned this before. I'll say it again. Between 58K and 93K, we sold 1 million coins out of long-term holders, people that are convicted. When you get past 5 months, that's Glassnode's cutoff for long-term holder. There is an algorithmic determination of what the likelihood of selling a Bitcoin is. It's very low. And yet at the same time, we had 1 million coins, 40,000 a day at one time. We've also, over this rise up to about 117, 118K, had a lot of other long-term holders starting to sell into the market. They have already into the 120s. The other thing is that thinking of that, Glassnode was just putting out some research that I was reading maybe yesterday, and it had to cover with the fact that between about 115 to 117,000, we had tremendous turnover in coins there. A lot of new buyers stepping in. And now that we're past 120 decisively, that is actually flipped. So instead of resistance at that level, it's not like we're breaking through it. It basically is a floor. And I think that it's on this side, this sell side pressure that we've seen, which has been, like I said, very strong. And yet, regardless of that, whether it's Bitcoin treasury companies, which have kind of fallen off a cliff as far as demand, or the ETFs, or just demand through adoption, or demand through corporate ledgers, we are seeing enough demand there that it's keeping our price point stabilized so that we're doing these stair steps. In fact, you could look at 2025 and it's just basically just a slow chop to a higher value. That's the best kind of market you want to see. I mean, that is what is going to carry us into a much higher price point.
Yeah, I absolutely fundamentally agree with you, right? It's this, it's infinity divided by 21 million, right? I think what has caught a lot of us off guard, specifically with 2025, and Q4 is yet to be determined what's going to happen, is the amount of sell pressure there has been, right? So we started the year, Trump inauguration day, we were at 109K, roughly 9 months later, 10 months later, we've gained maybe 10, 15K on that, right? At the time of recording. So what, what gives? Like, what's going on?
So why don't we should just wade into the paper Bitcoin discussion then and have at that too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let's talk
Well,
about that. So you think that's
so
what it is, huh?
no, now listen, do not put words in my mouth, buddy, because I'll tell you right now, I think that a lot of Bitcoiners do not understand what I'm talking about here when I say that there has been tremendous amount of sell side pressure. You're looking at old coins that have been dispersed that we haven't seen before. Do you remember not long ago, it was a month ago, maybe a little bit longer since I was out west hunting and stuff. Maybe it's been 6 weeks ago. We had 80,000 coins come onto the market. Those were very old coins. I think they were around 2011, 2012. 80,000 coins. Imagine what that would have done. Just remember when Germany sold 50,000 coins, the market tanked. And that blip there, that was like a 3.5% drop when they sold those coins. And quite frankly, I want you to know Galaxy Digital, I mean, it was an okay sale, but they didn't do the best that they could have. They did not, in my mind, maximize or minimize the impact on the market that they could have. And so what I'm trying to say is you're seeing a tremendous amount of sell side pressure there over the ever since actually January. And in that sell side pressure, we continuously just soak these coins up. It's almost like the market itself has become smarter. I don't know if it's the corporate side. I don't know if it's the fact that we have more liquidity, more options, but it has changed. This market has changed. And the type of momentum that I'm discussing right now, that this particular period in Bitcoin's price discovery is different. You can see it on chart. But the other thing is that it's a reflection of a maturing market. Bitcoiners, when they talk about paper Bitcoin, they often drift off into like the ETF discussion. I just mentioned the ETFs a minute ago. Now, if you're listening here, I want you to know something. Bitcoin ETFs are not paper Bitcoin. These aren't offshores and entities that are unregulated. These are U.S. companies or regulated in the U.S. And of the 12 Bitcoin spot ETFs, every one of them is legit in the sense they've got people crawling up their ass left and right. And none of them are going to commit crimes by selling Bitcoin or holding Bitcoin that is not there. And in fact, I think it was BlackRock that initiated the upgrade in settlement that they wanted within like 60 to 90 minutes after close. So what I'm trying to say is that's not paper Bitcoin. If you want to talk about paper Bitcoin, if you're concerned about the fact that Bitcoin is not being bought and sold in spot, then you have to go to the derivative markets. You have to look at futures. You have to look at options. And, those markets have changed too. I mean, it's tremendous. I mentioned a little while ago that the Bitcoin ETFs took in $1.2 billion. Well, if you look at BlackRock, you just take a look at BlackRock for a minute. That ETF is now their number one revenue producing ETF that they have. That's an $11 trillion company, BlackRock. They've got ETFs up the yin-yang, and they've had them for decades. And this spot Bitcoin ETF is their number one revenue generator, and it did it in just over a year. They are receiving more fees on that fund than just about anything they have out there in product. So again, this is legitimate. But the thing that's changed recently is the amount of option activity that is associated with these ETFs. And in options, usually it's winner takes all or winner takes most, because BlackRock now is the magnet for both options and liquidity in that market.
Yeah, and the BlackRock thing is really interesting to me because again, you have one of the world's largest asset manager. They have trillions and trillions upon trillions of dollars under management. And then they talk ill of Bitcoin, specifically, Larry Fink, for many years. And then all of a sudden the ETF launches and they had a tremendous amount of pressure getting that through because it was a politically hostile environment. But this is BlackRock, right? Like, they don't play by the rules that the rest of us play by. And they got the ETF through. The ETF was the most popular ETF, it was the most popular ETF in history. And now it's their most profitable ETF they ever have. So the BlackRock guys, which is so strange to say this, like, think if I told myself this 5 years ago, I would have been like, get out of here. You're lying to me. But basically, they're saying that look, like, Bitcoin is good, Bitcoin's here to stay. They're incentivized to do that. Larry Fink is not going to talk ill of his bags. All right. And I think that's something that people, you know, underestimate. Now, with all that being said, and with Trump winning, right, which was, I think, was massive with the end of Operation Choke Point 2.0, again, like, what gives? Like, what's going on here? You
So
know?
you're one of those people that's still disappointed that Bitcoin's where it is. Well,
Well, no,
and
no,
you
no, no.
see,
Let me specify.
all
So
right, go ahead,
I'm
please.
not disappointed at all. I've been in Bitcoin for a decade, like a third of my life. I've been in this thing, so I'm not disappointed at all. Like, I remember the days we were talking about this, and the fact when we hit 100K, I put a video of me dancing online because I was so happy. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, despite all the positive news that's happening, right? Because again, this is the most bullish year I've ever experienced in my life in Bitcoin's history. But from a price action perspective, it doesn't reflect all the awesome news that's been happening. Today, I reported on the fact that Luxembourg became the first European country. Their sovereign
Yeah.
wealth fund is going to get exposure to Bitcoin. They're putting 1% of their sovereign wealth fund. And we all start with 1%. And then you end up with like 10%. Then you end up with 50%. Then you end up with 80%. So I'm trying to paint this picture where, like, it's extremely bullish, but the price isn't reflecting that. Now, you had a Freudian slip. I don't know if you meant to say this, but you
What?
said favor Bitcoin. So I want to talk about that. What's your theory behind that? Like, is this price suppression? Is that what's going on?
You have to realize that in some of these derivative products, the way they're designed is that the people that hold these products do not have to hold the spot. They don't hold Bitcoin. These are futures are settled in cash. And so you're actually, what you're doing is you're exposing yourself to the price direction of Bitcoin while at the same time not having to hold particular Bitcoin. But that's a very limited market. I mean, if you look at it as a percent of the market of Bitcoin, it's a very small percentage. And not only that, you have to realize too that these TradFi people are building traditional products on Bitcoin. And I do believe that we're going to have some come to Jesus moments for these people because they are not used to dealing with a product that trades 24/7 and that is truly provably finite. And I do believe that we are going to see some incredibly dynamic short squeeze moves from gamma squeeze and everything else coming up sometime in the future because people are betting on this directionally at a very high level. I mean, those options that I'm talking about, that market has gone up one magnitude. I mean, it's gone up from like $8 to $80 billion in just over a year, I think. So this is a tremendous increase. And, futures, which we used to all watch, just like hawks and look at the funding rates. Funding rates right now are up. They're about 8%. But I guess what I'm trying to say is everything is aligned perfectly for a sustained bull market that is going to go way higher. And if we're used to, like, for instance, you said you've been in the space a long time, 10 years. By the way, I've got like t-shirts that are 20, 30 years old, bud, but nonetheless, that probably seems like a long time to you, and I'm sure it does. But what I'm trying to say is the past cycles, one of the reasons that we started this conversation on is that I said, hey, I think the cycles are gone. I think we're done. I think we're in a different world today. One of the reasons I said that was because if you look at the past and you see both the cycles, the rate of return, the volatility, it's changed. So it doesn't mean that Bitcoin isn't going to keep going up and to the right. It just means that it's the kind of sustained lower volatility surge. Like, imagine standing inside of a tidal wave. You can't stop some things. This is going to continue going. I mean, in my mind, we haven't seen any of the peak of what's going to happen with Bitcoin over this, let's say, cycle, but let's say over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. I completely I agree with. I think by the end of Trump's second term, so 3 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw $500,000 Bitcoin. which seems unfeasible at the moment. But
Not to
again,
me.
what's your reasoning behind that?
No, not to me at all. And I think it's because of something you said earlier. I think you nailed it when you said it's the denominator. What is the denominator? It's the dollar. That's the issue here. It's the dollar. And I don't want to just bore everybody with macro discussions, but the bottom line is the world has changed rapidly and it's continuing to change. It's changing underneath our feet while we're standing here right now. This world is shifting. I mean, this is I consider the first phase of what we're seeing now as existing between 1944 and 1971, Bretton Woods to Nixon closing the gold repatriation window. That first phase is setting in place right now what we are going to be going through and suffering through in some ways as the world shifts. It's not that the dollar is going to go away. It's just that the underlying premise of the dollar-backed, meaning U.S. Treasuries, because that's what we've really done, that backed world as a reserve currency is weakening, and it's changing everything. And I mean, that's a deep conversation, but basically, I think that over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see. I think Larry Lepart's got it right in the big print. I think he's got that right. I think he nailed it. I think we're going to see tremendous amounts of liquidity. And remember, when I say big print, mentioning his book, I'm not talking about them rolling shit off of the press or something. I'm talking about liquidity injected into the system. And we're going to need it. I mean, we are going to need massive amounts of liquidity to get through this period that's coming up. This administration, you mentioned the Trump administration, they've already told us what they're doing. You remember, we've pivoted. At first, we were going to go in there and save $2 trillion. Well, then it was $1 trillion. And then, and I'll be just generous with Elon. I think that maybe he saved 200 billion max, and that's about it. So what have they done? They've pivoted to growth. That is the next stage. That's what we're doing. And we are in a global arms race right now. We are in an arms race with China, and it is all built around AI and supercomputers. And, we are both ahead and behind the curve in that race. But liquidity is going to be really needed going forward. So if you think of the dollar as the denominator and you stick Bitcoin up there, what do you say? You know what? There is no limit to the amount of money that you could see on Bitcoin's price over the next, 2 to 3 years. I don't think that you're outrageous at all, and that could happen.
Yo, I want to tell you about the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. I'm talking about bitcoinwell.com. What makes bitcoinwell.com different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform, meaning as soon as you buy Bitcoin and the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. And that perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Support Bitcoin on-ramps that are self-custody by default. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com today. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin.
It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting times, quite interesting cycle. I agree with you, by the way, and you're not the first person who's told me this as well, which is, the way that Bitcoin has been appreciating in value this cycle is very, very different. And I think it's because of the institutional inflows rather than the retail. Where is retail? Retail is non-existing this cycle.
Retail's not here.
Is it too expensive? Is it the sticker shock? Like, what's going on
I'm
there?
glad you mentioned. That's a great point. I wouldn't have even. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I just had that conversation with somebody. So first, before I even talk about that, retail's not here. These are not retail-driven demands that I'm talking about. Now, I will say when the ETFs first launched, it was mainly retail investors from the research from River and Van Eck. They were showing like 60 to 80% of the people involved in the ETFs initially were retail or high net worth individuals. That shifted, though. It's shifting, and it's continuing to shift. No, what I'm talking about, though, when you mention unit bias, the idea that a Bitcoin is 120-some thousand a coin, I don't think I really understood barrier that is, the mental barrier for many people. I think 100,000 is a barrier for most people. Do you remember the idiots back there in 22 or 23? They're still waiting for 12,000 Bitcoin. They never got it. And they're still sitting there waiting. There are going to be people that are waiting as Bitcoin goes past 150, 175, 80, and then eventually crosses 200,000. There are going to be people still waiting for, 65,000 Bitcoin. And they're going to be toast. I just, as an aside, I just got back. I was out west elk hunting with a bow, and I take a backpack. I hike back into the mountains, and it's pretty remote and pretty lonely. But there's one guy that shows up, and he and I hunt. We hunt alone separately, but then we meet in the evening. Now, I've known this guy for like 6 years, Nico, and I've been talking to him about Bitcoin the whole time. Can you imagine sitting at the end of a long day? You got the bourbon in your hand. You just had a freeze-dried meal. You're sitting there, and you're just talking about everything in the world. I mean, I bored this guy to tears with my discussion around Bitcoin. And I mean, he's had me sitting next to him for years. Do you know he's never bought a single sat? And one of the things that came out in our last discussion sitting around the campfire there is that part of it was he was waiting for it to have a lower price. He said, just what you mentioned, 120,000, that's too much. I can't afford that. And I tell him, well, you could buy just a little piece, but I've always told him this. When it was under 20,000, I was like begging him to buy. But people just can't, and of all things, after all our discussions, one of the things he brought up were shitcoins and how they were so much cheaper. And I tell you, it was everything I couldn't do to just, get up, walk away to my tent and go to bed. So it is an issue. What you're talking about is an issue. And for retail, the thing that separates retail from these corporate buyers or sovereign wealth funds, they don't give a shit. They come up with the idea of an allocation. You mentioned the fact that, Luxembourg, I saw that, like I said, 1%, $9 million. But the thing is that when they make that decision to buy, it's not based upon price. It is based upon allocation. And these businesses, these companies, these countries that are moving into Bitcoin now are agnostic to price. They don't give a shit. They're just allocating. And retail, for those people that are unable to cross that mental barrier, how many times have you asked or had people ask you, am I too late to Bitcoin? Well, I usually tell people, no, you're not. But guess what? At some point, you're too fucking late. It's too late. You waited, you screwed around, you didn't do the research, and at some point, you're going to be sitting there. And those people that don't hold hard assets in the world that I was just painting a little while ago, the world of a strong liquidity injected credit-based system where dollars are created through debt, if you don't hold hard assets, something the government can't print, Bitcoin being the first, gold being maybe the second, if you don't hold those things, you're going to be left out in the cold.
Yeah. You've said in the past that you've studied Bitcoin for thousands of hours. Why thousands of hours? Why did it take you and by the way, I'm speaking from a place of someone who has gone through this rabbit hole as well, but I want to get your perspective. What did you get from studying Bitcoin for thousands of hours? What realization did you come to? What eureka moment did you have? And when did it click? When were you like, oh my God, like this is insanity. This is crazy.
Yeah, that's a deep question too. First off, let's start off and just say that there is, in my mind, for most people that are getting into Bitcoin, there is no necessarily eureka moment. I do know some people that have had that. Usually they have the type of a background where they can understand, they can look at the white paper or the code, and they get it right off the bat. I think what you really need to do is when you're studying Bitcoin, what you're really doing is you're hardening yourself. You're putting your armor on. You're building conviction. You're building a determined buying plan, whether it's smash buy like me. I'm a drunken sailor when it comes to buying Bitcoin. I am like incredible. Or if you're DCAing, dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, it is that armor that allows you to go through these volatile periods and see them as buying opportunities. If you have spare cash, what do you do? What would you do if Bitcoin dropped right now down about 100,000? You'd buy more Bitcoin. Why? Because you've put in, hundreds of hours. You know what Bitcoin is. The only reason that I continue to study Bitcoin, well, I just like it. I mean, I like studying. I love reading about Bitcoin, and I can't get enough of it. I mean, I was reading about stuff today, and obviously I'm very involved in, heavily involved in this Core V30 release that's coming out tomorrow, and knots, and so I'm just constantly reading and studying, and what does that do for me? I don't normally trade Bitcoin, but I just think that it's the most fascinating. Bitcoin is the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. If you read history and you study history, you realize that we've been looking for this forever. And now in a digital age, this is what we want. There is no second best. Bitcoin is the winner. It's the 0 to 1 event. It's the invention of the wheel. I mentioned this not long ago. The oldest wheel is about 5,000 years old. I think it's in Slovenia. It was found in a bog, preserved down there. It's wood. But 4,000 years ago, they had developed or evolved into a hub and spoke system. And if you look on the chariots, if you can find one of the existing chariot wheels, it looks about the same. In fact, I can go out there I've got a sports car stuck out in front of the studio. I can go out there right now. It's just a fucking wheel. It's the invention. Bitcoin is the invention. And it came along at a time when we are going to transition. We're going to AI, agentic agents. They're not going to be going down to Fifth Third or any other damn bank. They are going to use digital money. And Bitcoin can be that money. It's going to be an incredible ride. So I just study all the time because, I just think Bitcoin's the most fascinating subject out there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it really is. And I think also too, like, you've heard that trope before in the past, right? Which is like, don't talk about money. Money's ugly, right? And then Bitcoiners, they can't help themselves but to continuously talk about Bitcoin over and over and over and over and over and over again. So, why do you think that is?
Well, the holidays are coming, so you'll get to show off at Thanksgiving and Christmas. You'll probably get thrown out of a house somewhere. You'll get a chance to just bore people to death with discussions about Bitcoin. If you look at your life and you think about how your life has different cycles in it, at some point, and you're probably getting there now, Nico, at some point, you're creating, you're building, you're trying to also create wealth. And at some point, you want to store that wealth. You want to put it somewhere. You want to have that thing remain in effect, maybe grow, but you don't want to be losing your purchasing power. And we have been fascinated by money throughout history. I mean, if you read about the ancient world, the Sumerians, the Assyrians, all of these ancient worlds from 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, they all revolve around money, power, and it's a constant struggle, constant battle. You can look back to the clay ledgers in Sumerians and cuneiform, the ledger of the attempt to somehow determine who owes what to who. And if you've ever seen in museums, they have even clay balls that would be broken open that might have something inside there that signified the end of a contract. We've been doing this for millennia. We've been looking for money. So we're always talking about money because it's that common denominator as you progress through life of both acquiring and then attempting to store, wealth. If that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I think people inherently know that the money's broken, so they don't want to talk about it. They inherently know, so they kind of pull an ostrich and they put their head in the sand and they said, you know what, like, this doesn't exist, type of thing. But it does, and I think broken money is very ugly, and I think it really it is a form of rot. And I think it really does affect a lot of people's lives very negatively. But the sinister part about it is that they're not even aware that it's happening, right? But I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of you are extremely optimistic and bullish. Um, Not all of us feel this way. So
Well,
you're very optimistic. You're very bullish. For anyone that doesn't know, you were in the Air Force, right? Uh,
Navy,
Navy.
Navy.
You
Now,
were in the
you
you're
know
in the
that
Navy.
pisses me off because
I saw the picture on your X account, and you're wearing a pilot helmet. So
because because the Air Force, they have, anytime the Air Force wants to land, they just look down there. They've got like a 10,000-foot long runway. It's not a big
Mhm.
deal. They're going to go play golf afterwards. In the Navy, in the Navy, and I remember very clearly the first time I ever saw a U.S. aircraft carrier. I was a little student. I was stuck on somebody's wing. I was flying like this. And I was looking at him and I thought, man, I don't want to screw this up. I just want to stay right where I'm supposed to be. But he had a break in the clouds. We were circling over the carriers, my first time to land. And I looked down. I made a mistake and I looked down through the hole in the clouds and I saw this U.S. aircraft carrier that was about this fucking big right here, like about a gnat. And I thought, I got to land on that. I got to somehow trap on that. So there's a big difference between Navy and Air Force pilots.
and have okay, all right. Talking a little bit of Navy versus Air Force. Not so. I mean, but
Trash.
that's normal between the branches, right?
It is.
So, but still, Navy, that's still duty, right? You still you probably experience things that a lot of people don't experience. So, how have your life experiences shaped who you are and how you got here? Because all Bitcoiners have this story. There's this one thing that has happened to them that has initially attracted them to Bitcoin. Because if you benefit from the fiat system, you actually do the exact opposite. You try to justify why Bitcoin isn't necessary. It's people that need Bitcoin that are attracted to Bitcoin. Everyone else, but it's very few people that actually benefit from fiat. They are just like, no, it's not worth anything. It's useless. It's like the central bank should set the policy, blah, 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 blah. But the rest of the population is like, they don't even know what's going on. So my question is, what initially attracted you to Bitcoin after all your life experiences?
I think it's the fact that I don't like authority.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might wonder, what the hell is that about? I mean, he was in the military. And, I used to be a cop and I worked underground too as a miner and a bunch of crap. Um, but I found as the years went by that I really became resistant to authority or to a narrative that I could not verify, so to speak, that I couldn't trust. And, in the Navy, I mean, I scared myself enough. There have been times when I was so puckered up, I could have sucked up the seat cushion through my ass. I mean, but I never had the ability to just sit quietly and think about what it means to be, like you said, to be constantly debased, to live in a world where the things that I value are being taken from me. I would go further than what you'd say. I would think that I think the current system we live in is a world of theft, and it's illegal theft. The Cantillon nipple suckers like the politicians in Washington, you're right. I mean, for them, it's worked great. Look at the insider trading that we've had occur in Congress over the last 4 or 5 decades. It's incredible. I mentioned this recently. Nancy Pelosi started out with $3 million in '85. She's worth $413 million now. And Mitch McConnell, $1 million in '87. He's got $33 million now. These people don't want Bitcoin to succeed. There's no central bank that wants Bitcoin to succeed. It's just people like you and me. And I think the reason why you and I do these podcasts or why we go on shows and stuff, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I am desperate to try and show people a hopeful path to escape this dystopian digital nightmare that's being built for us. Whether it's Peter Thiel with Palantir or that Sam Altman with his world vision. AI and the digital world that's coming for us is going to be it has the potential to be basically a velvet walled prison. I don't want to live there. I want to have an escape. I want to be able to leave this system. So to get back to your question, I think that there, is an underlying trait in my personality that does not trust authority and does not like to be told what to do. And surprisingly enough, I've met fellow Bitcoiners that share that. And quite frankly, we're often aligned in our thought process about that. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question, Nico.
Yeah, it totally does. It totally does. And I heard you say a lot of like military terms like triage and stuff like that. So, interesting. It's interesting.
Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.
So, George, what has you the most optimistic about the next 3 years other than number go up? I'll lay the groundwork what I mean by that. So
yeah, go ahead.
We're living in this very kind of tumultuous time in American history where, you had a high profile assassination that happened about a month ago. It was very sad. And then President Trump, it's like millimeters away, right? And I've never seen that I've never lived through that myself, right? And I've never seen the polarization as big as it is right now. Now, my theory as to why I believe that is happening, I think it's because of the wealth inequality driven by central bank policy. That's why I believe this is happening. But I want to get your, take on this, because it seems like you're happy, you're optimistic, you're feeling good about the future. I'm looking at all the things. I'm like, yeah, Bitcoin is my oasis. Bitcoin is my escape. But I'm still looking around and like all these people need Bitcoin because I think they would stop fighting if they adopted Bitcoin.
I like that take, Nico. You and I are probably aligned on this too. And obviously anybody that's looking on the screen or anything, you can tell that I'm an old boomer. So I've been through a lot. I mean, I've been through assassinations and attempted assassinations before with the president. And I had to say, though, the part that you mentioned is very real. That is, I have never seen the level of division that I'm seeing in today's social media and just in general across news media and platforms. It is at a different level than before. And I do think the other thing is, I think you're spot on. I think that this is being driven. You say wealth inequality, but what I'll say is that, it's like wealth distribution. It's so skewed right now. If you look back, you could look at charts with the Fed, and you can see that 1971 that I mentioned earlier, that is a pivotal moment. That is when it changes for most Americans. But the groundwork has been laid over decades. I'd say that NAFTA, the Free Trade Association with Mexico, was a huge turning point. I know most people don't even know what I'm talking about, but I was there. And I'll tie it into the next big event, which was most favored nation status to China, followed by next year in 2001 by entry into the World Trade Organization. From somebody that lived in that period, that was there, that saw the news cycle and the politicians, I can tell you that looking back, I can see that I had smoke being blown up my ass because these people were lying or just so ill-informed that when they discussed the fact that jobs wouldn't be going away, that this would be a benefit, a plus for Americans, including in the middle class, they were wrong. And if you look at what I mentioned before, from 1944 on to 71, that idea that, we set in motion, and I know you're familiar with Triffin's dilemma, but we set in motion in 1944 a system that could not sustain itself. It was not sustainable. I can prove that to you. Bretton Woods was not actually finalized until the late 50s. Took a long time to get all the countries on board. Well, once it was fully implemented, it didn't even last, I don't think, 12 years before it collapsed. It collapsed with Nixon. And why did it collapse? Because we had pegged the dollar to gold. And then we pegged all the other currencies to gold. And what happens? If you're the world's reserve currency, you have to export your dollars. And as we began to produce more and more dollars and we were called out on it, eventually Nixon couldn't redeem the gold. We had over 20 to 22,000 tons of gold after World War II. And by the time we gave up, I think we had about 8,000. I say think because has there been an audit of Fort Knox? No. Has there been an audit of the Bitcoin? No. So I'm just saying that these things have been taking decades, set in motion over decades. And then what happened in 71? When Nixon closed that window, and I was there, I heard him speaking on television. And when he closed that, he closed it based upon the idea that there were speculators attacking the dollar.
Yep, I remember that.
Meaning
I remember the video. I wasn't there.
Yes,
but I remember the
meaning
video.
that I saw it in person.
That's
meaning
crazy.
That we were being attacked by an outside force. That's how he framed it. So what's that mean?
Did you know? Wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
You said something really, really interesting.
What?
Did you understand the implications of what he was saying when he said it?
Well, I'd love to say that, yeah, because I'm so damn smart. But you got to remember, I was a kid then. Well, I wasn't. I was a working man. I was like 17, 18 years old. I was working. And no, I didn't. I'd have to say, here's the thing. I hate to say this, but I actually believed much of what he was saying, meaning that outside forces were attacking America, that we had to defend ourselves, that we were going to close the gold window. And he also said it wasn't going to make any difference. Might make it more expensive for you to go overseas on vacation. But of course, over the next 10 years, I got to see my eyes opened as I witnessed the impact of what he had done. Because what did he really do? Let's just take that one step further before I stop. So remember what I said. How did they peg the dollar? They pegged it to gold. So what did he do when he left that system? He then had to peg the world's reserve currency to dollars. Do you understand? He moved from that to dollars. And what does that mean? That means he moved to U.S. Treasuries. That has been the basis of this whole, not Ponzi scheme, I won't say that, but this whole idea of us exporting our dollars, the world needs our dollars, artificially inflating the strength of our dollar, and at the same time, coupled with those things that I mentioned before, we have hollowed out the manufacturing base and the middle class in this country. And I don't have to speculate. I can prove it just by looking at charts. And what is the result? Now we've got people, if you look at the amount of wealth distribution, how that is skewed to the wealthy, it's intolerable and it's coming to a head. And I am positive, but I do say that if you follow the fourth turning, if you've looked at Neil Howe and Strauss's work, you realize that we're in the crisis mode now, and we've got about 3, maybe 5 years left, and it's going to get resolved in this crisis, and it's going to be a tough time. But on the other side, for those Bitcoiners or those people that are not too late, you know what? You're looking at the wheel, so just hold on to your wheel, and you'll be fine at the end of it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Okay. So, George, my question to you is, what has been the most difficult thing for you holding Bitcoin over the years?
Well, that's easy. That's an easy question. It is my the difficult relationships it's caused for me and my family. And
Really?
yeah, and in particular of our children, my one son that I have been very close to in the past, we ended up just estranged for years. Now it's been years, and so I'm working hard to get that relationship back in place. But without a doubt, it's been the difficulty with some of my kids, but I think they've all come on board. It's just this one son that it's been really difficult for me.
And do you think that will change with number go up?
There's no fucking number that Bitcoin's going to go to that will turn him around. I mean, this is a young man that thinks that Bitcoin will boil oceans, and so there's no amount of money that Bitcoin's going to go to. You know, someday when I'm gone, he's going to get a surprise because, you know, I have all my wealth in Bitcoin, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Do you think that, because that's okay. So this leads me to my next question. Do you think that there are certain worldviews and political ideologies that are incompatible with Bitcoin?
Yes. You know, I'm reading Ayn Rand again, Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and yes, I do believe that. I think that there are certain people you will never onboard with Bitcoin because their worldview doesn't either respect the idea of private property or property rights or someone being more successful than others. You know, all animals are created the same, but some are created more equal. So, unfortunately, I do think that certain ideological bents and social norms are going to prohibit Bitcoin adoption in some circles. And I will tell you that, you know, I'm getting to a point in my life where I'm working very hard to try and help people. You know, I'm not so sure that the work that I'm trying to do in podcasts and things like that, I don't know if it helps onboard anybody, but I'm certainly trying to help people understand what they own so that they'll hold on to it or increase their stack as time goes by, because those people are going to be very successful. They're going to come out on the other side of that 3 to 5 year period I'm talking about. And don't forget that AI is going to be in there too. You know, that right now I just read an article as recently as 3 weeks ago that was talking about how AI is not going to take jobs. That's absolute fucking bullshit. AI is already taking jobs. And you can look at the Magnificent Seven, you can look at Salesforce. You know, some people have been naive enough, some CEOs, to come out and actually say this, you know, in a public forum. I think most are starting to learn that that's probably not a good technique going forward, but it is taking jobs. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be a tremendous abundance on the other side of this window if AI is successful. It should. I mean, we should have a technological revolution that increases everything from GDP to just personal wealth. I mean, it is possible, but it's going to be a very difficult time. And I want the people that hold Bitcoin, I want them to understand what they own, make sure they're not trading, not doing anything on margin or leverage. Just make sure you don't do anything to lose that stack, because it is the wheel and for the future.
Yeah, that's man, that was very hard hitting, George. A lot of information to unpack there. So first, I'm sorry to hear about your son.
I appreciate that. It's kept me up many a night, and it's difficult for me to talk about it. But you know, looking back, you know, you got to realize something. I'm sure you went through this same period as I did. The more that you suddenly became you really understood Bitcoin, you probably got more and more excited about it because you realize that this is the chance. This is our last chance to escape. It's not coming again. That's why Bitcoin is so important, and we cannot dick this up. We can't be doing FAFO around Bitcoin. There's no fuck around, find out thing, because we're counting on it. So many of us are counting on it. We see the future. We know that it is a dystopian digital velvet lined prison that they're building. And I don't want to live there. And the only way to escape, the only way we're ever going to get out of here is Bitcoin. So there's a part of me that, like I said, it's a regret, but at the same time, I don't know how I could have changed anything. And if I hadn't done what I did, and if I weren't so convicted, I wouldn't have the Bitcoin now. When you go down 80% and you're laying there awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you buy Bitcoin and it's 16,000 and dropping, and you go outside and you feel like you're going to vomit, that takes courage. It takes conviction. And, if you have that type of courage and conviction, it's natural. You just want to tell people about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, because you know how much it improved your life, that it will improve their life as well. But I think the ideological thing is quite interesting, and I think it's the elephant in a room that a lot of people don't want to talk about, right? And they're starting to mention it on legacy media, by the way. I was watching CNBC the other day because I always like to see what corporate media is talking about, because it kind of gives you like a window view, like you're peeking into a window of like what this alternate reality is of what they're thinking, what their philosophy is, and all that stuff. And they brought up Balaji's network state versus the nation state. And essentially, like fundamentally, the nation state needs control. It needs people to use this single currency. It needs people to use it needs people to go along with the state's control, the monopoly over the monopoly on money, right? And
Yeah.
if you look at the original vision of the United States, it wasn't founded on those principles at all. And the reason we gave the state, the government, the monopoly on money, the justification was at least they're going to be accountable, democratically accountable. And they are not, right? We found out that the Federal Reserve is an independent entity that's acting basically at its own will. I think Trump tried to fire one of the governors, and now they're in court right now, right? Trump's been telling, hey, Powell, lower rates. He doesn't want to lower rates. And you say, okay, that's fantastic. You have an independent Fed. This is the way it should be. It won't be politically compromised. But the problem is, if you've taken a look at the Fed's track record, it's acted extremely politically sometimes, right? But it has no accountability. And now you compare that with Bitcoin, it's rules without rulers. So it fixes the very reason as to why we gave the state the monopoly on money in the first place, because we needed the rules, or at least that's what we were told. Now we discovered a system where there's rules, but we no longer need the rulers. And the rulers are now trying to justify why they should continue being rulers, right? Which is what I'm seeing. This is when I see central bankers talk about CBDCs, when I see them criticizing Bitcoin and they don't come up with any type of logical argument. It's like, listen, I know you have better money that's rules without rulers, but let me tell you why you should have rulers, and let me tell you why you should lose worse money. And they'll use scary words like people are going to lose their jobs. I saw this clip from China that came out basically like, listen, if everyone starts using Bitcoin, everyone's going to die. Like literally word for word, that's what the guy said.
I saw that.
It's so funny. So yeah, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on that, because we are getting kind of close to the top. It's an alternative system that proves that the other system is antiquated and the other system is evil.
Nico, the first thing I'm going to say is I do not believe the Fed is politically independent or independent in any way, shape, or form. That's what the first thing I'm going to say. The only thing that you're seeing right now is a turf war between Powell and Trump, and that's okay. The second thing I'm going to say is, you name me right now out of 189 countries, and I don't know how many central banks you want to name, you find one central bank that is in favor of Bitcoin right now on planet Earth. There
Zero.
is none.
Doesn't exist.
It's zero.
It's ideologically opposed. This is what I was
Exactly.
talking about earlier.
So if we tie it into our discussion, what does that really mean? If you look at the future, where is this going? No central bank wants Bitcoin to be successful. Not a one of them. The quintillion nipple suckers, whether it's Nancy, whether it's Jamie Dimon, whoever these people are that are close to the money source, the money printer, the actual money spigot. Find one of them that is going to want to break his rice bowl or her rice bowl. They don't exist. We are in this alone. This is a battle. Bitcoiners, and there aren't many of us. You'll see a statistic come out that says there's 200 million crypto holders, in like say North America. There aren't that many. There are not many Bitcoin maxis. The people that just hold Bitcoin, understand Bitcoin, keep it in cold storage, get it off these fucking exchanges, don't believe in the treasury companies, although I will tell you I'm an investor in MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, but nonetheless, they don't mean anything to me. Jack squat. I'd sell them so fast it'd make your head spin if I had to. It's Bitcoin, and it's Bitcoin in cold storage. It's the only thing that you can count on. That is your escape. These people do not like us. They don't want us to succeed. The only reason that we are seeing the corporate adoption that we're having right now, the ETFs, even the Bitcoin treasury companies, is there's money there. It's fiat dollars for them. Do you think those ETFs, do you think that Larry Fink really believes in Bitcoin? Larry Fink not long ago said that he was having a conversation with a sovereign wealth fund, and they were asking him, should we allocate 3 or 5%? He's having those kinds of conversations with people.
Yeah.
He's having conversations where he talked about a debasement trade 6 months ago. And he said, if you believed in that trade, and if other nations follow these sovereign wealth funds, you're going to have up to a $700,000 Bitcoin soon. These people don't want Bitcoin to succeed, and they're going to try to build the rails they can to contain it, whether it's through stable coins, whether it's through some kind of rails on FinCEN, whether they're going to go and make a call to Foundry mining pool.
Yep.
Whether they're going to talk to, I could go down so many rabbit holes here. But the bottom line is that it's just us, kids. It's just us. We got to realize that, we have this special, for the people that are here now, we have got a special gift that we've worked hard to acquire, and nobody else really gets it. And you can prove that. You just go around and start asking people about Bitcoin. You're never going to find anybody that has a conversation like we're having right here. When I talk to the plebs that are listening or watching right now, and I talk to them about cold storage, they know what I'm saying. They understand what a seed phrase is. They know what the exchanges are. They know what the risks are. Why? Because they are one of the few. And lonely are the brave, my friend. So,
lonely
are the brave.
Lonely are the brave. I love it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
Well, George, it's been an honor to have you on the podcast. I always love our conversations. I feel like one builds on top of the other. And I really appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks. I appreciate that too, Nico. there's some other things I'd like to riff on, but we'll hold that for another discussion. We'll see how things turn out with the Core V30 proposal that's coming out.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I've got some real
So-
concerns there.
So, should we save that or should we talk
No,
about
I'm
it?
ready to rip now. Let's rip. I'm
Let's
telling you right
rip it.
now.
Okay. All right. We're extending the podcast over an hour to talk about Core V30 versus knots. I'm remembering, George, that you specifically told me you wanted to talk about this subject. So yes, let's do it.
The reason I want to talk about it is I think it's a threat vector. I think they're increasing the threat surface to Bitcoin, and I don't understand it. For those of you who aren't familiar, tomorrow Bitcoin Core developers are going to do something that's never been done before. You know, we've got all kinds of shit on the network right now. We've got JPEGs, we got pixelated dicks, you know, JPEGs of frogs and other shit on the blockchain, and it's bloated the blockchain. UTXO set is also bloated. And these are exploits, they're hacks, they're workarounds. They are in response to either poorly written code or an inability to foresee unintended consequences. But tomorrow, we're going to take the op return, which is part of a Bitcoin transaction, not spendable, prunable. And I can tell you about that if you're interested, but it's not important. But what it means is they're going to up that limit on it. It has a little limit of like 83 bytes on it right now. They're going to just blow it wide open to 100,000 bytes. 100,000 bytes. That means that you can put all kinds of stuff. So what am I saying when it's never been done before? It means that they're putting up a graffiti wall that anybody can write on, anybody can put an image in, and I'm talking 100,000 bytes. That means you can put a hell of an image in there. And I've got concern about the types of images that are going to end up in that area. You've got the ability to put in MP4s, audio files, maybe malware. You can put just about any damn thing you want in there. And here's the thing. Who's the gatekeeper to that? I run a node. I'll never run Core V30. I will never run that fucking thing. I run knots, and that's only because it's the only thing I have available right now to me as a software implementation of the Bitcoin protocol that will limit that exposure. I don't want to have a node that's got RAM and a disk on it uploading crap. You know, if you look at a node, what is a node? Node's nothing but a server. It's just an open relay. It's a Dropbox, if you will, for the world. Anybody can put something into an op return. And at some point, if you run a full node, it's an archival node, and you download the blockchain, you're going to see what I'm talking about when I say spam is bloating the network. It's easy to do, you know. Shit. I'm going to get on a rant here. I'm just telling you right now. You know, 5 years ago, I could have gone down to, I don't even know Radio Shack was still there, but I could have gone down somewhere and bought for like $40. I could have made my own node. Recently, I bought a new node, and I spent hundreds of dollars on it. Why? Because I had to get more RAM, and I had to get a faster node. I had to get more data storage. 2 terabytes is what I got. I don't need all that, but I will someday. And why did I do that? It's because the dipshits have allowed all this stuff on the network. And when I say allowed, what I'm talking about is if you look at the SegWit 2017 software upgrade, and then you look at Taproot in 21, you tell me which one of the core developers told you that we were going to have all this crap on the network that we've got now. Those were unintended consequences.
Mm-hmm. That's the key point.
It is why we are sitting here today. When you sync that node, I bought that node, and you sync it, you start out with Satoshi's Genesis block. That's really cool. And you can watch your node sync. Goes really fast. And then what happens? Nothing really serious in 2017, even though they upped the block size to 4 megabytes. They call them 4 million weighted units. But you can put a lot of crap in there, and people are. And then after the Taproot wizard jackasses came on stage in Miami in 22 and said, hey, you know, we've hacked Bitcoin. We've exploited this. And by 23, your node, when it comes to syncing, is going to slow down. It's going to slow down big time. And it's going to take days for you to download all that crap, all that stuff I'm talking about. And what about when that 100,000 byte image on your node comes up with something that you don't want to see? And I'm talking about like just really like a bad image of some little kid or something being something bad happening to him, and that's on your node. That's not going to work for me. And the other thing is, if you think I'm an alarmist or a village idiot here, it's already happened. It's happened twice. And the last time with BSV, Satoshi's Vision, which is a failed fork of Bitcoin Cash, which is a failed fork of Bitcoin. So guess what? They all have similar code. They took the op return and they did exactly what core developer wants to do. They went from 80 bytes to 100,000 bytes. And what do you think they got on there? Child sexual abuse material very soon. And then I don't understand what is pushing this agenda.
Ideology.
If you look, I'll tell you something. I'm going to tell you what I think of Bitcoin core developers right now. Before I do, I want you to know I've been involved in this for about 4 months. I was the person that stood up in Prague and asked Michael Saylor to opine about op return core versus knots. This was months ago. You should listen to it if you can on YouTube. And in that time, from core supporters, the three stooges, basically, there's three of them in particular, I've been called stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't write code. I don't get to vote, which is true. And I don't have any voice in this. They don't even want my voice. I know someone that I have tremendous respect for that's been involved in technology for decades who reached out to them during Prague, and not one core developer or core supporter answered him back. They ghosted him. These people are insulated. They are elite. They act like the 1%. There is no consensus-driven policy. You don't even know what the hell their goals are. In fact, I'll tell you right now, if you're listening to this, why don't you do something? Have some fun. Go on to Grok and use ChatGPT. Use the two of them. And then type in, who are the 5 core developers with commit access merge authority? First off, the two, ChatGPT and core, may not even agree. They may not even know the names. Then ask them something simple. How old are they? What is their education? What's their background? Don't even ask anything complicated like, how much do they make? Who pays them? This is not the way to run the world's most pristine collateral asset that all of us are counting on for our future. So I'm not even saying that I know what I'm talking about. Again, I could be a village idiot. But I'll tell you, I do know one thing. I know the way that Core V30 has been approached, by the way the core developers and the core supporters have approached this issue. You're fucking idiots. You have pissed off people like me. You have pissed off people like myself who have contributed money to core. You'll never get another dime from me. And you have burned all kinds of fucking bridges so that we can't have a discussion about things that are important, like quantum and the threat and a software upgrade. You people have got a lot of damage to repair if we're going to go forward.
Yeah. It's again, it comes down to, there's a core group of people that have a lot of power. That's what Bitcoin was all about. That's literally what Bitcoin was to combat, to do. Nick Szabo said it recently, to download knots kind of like as a half measure initially.
That's interesting.
I come from the camp of, I like knots, but I also come from the camp of, I just don't upgrade. I think I'm running version 27 or something. So, and I'm going to continue, I'm just going to continue running version 27. Well,
that's okay, but you have to realize they only keep 3 of them like updated. So at some point, I mean, you are kind of subjecting yourself to a little bit of a risk there, but I won't get into that. I'll just say that's your choice. And again, to anybody that's listening, you know what? You can tell me, you can just say, George, go screw yourself, because guess what? I don't really care. I'll run what I want. And that is the power of a node. Everybody that's listening to this, if you've gotten any money from Bitcoin, if you've been paid, you need to pay it back. You get off your ass like I did, you run a node, and then you decide whether you're going to run Core V30. I hope the hell not, but that's up to you. You run something, and then we can talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, George, thank you for coming on today. I'm really glad that you voiced your opinion on the core versus knots thing. I completely agree. You know, I'm a media guy. That's my main focus, but just doing some research into this, and again, it does not make sense. And then also, how committed they are to implementing this, even though there's so much pushback from the community. I've seen this type of behavior before, right? There's very similar behavior. And that's why I said initially, you said, like, why is this happening? My belief is it's ideological. I think that there's two camps in Bitcoin. There's the, we can improve this, and then there's the ossification camp. I come heartily in the ossification camp. Like, unless it's a security update that is like 100% necessary, Bitcoin should be money. And there is something that you said, which I've never heard someone else say. I've said this before, but I've never heard someone else talk about this, which is the unintended consequences of changing Bitcoin. We saw that with the ordinals. We saw that with ordinals.
Exactly.
Ordinals came out of nowhere when everyone in their mind, including myself, was like, yeah, Taproot sounds like a fantastic idea. And then within a month, you had ordinals come in, and everyone was like, wait a second. Like, we didn't sign up. We didn't agree to this. What was happening? That is the unintended consequence. And it reminds me of Adam Back, you know, and this is someone literally studied computer science. And he said it. He said it specifically when he was researching Bitcoin. He was going down this rabbit hole where he spent 6 to 9 months studying Bitcoin to see where he can improve it. What he came to realize was, if I improve something, it comes with a trade-off.
I love it.
And that's the thing that people need to understand about Bitcoin is, and this is perhaps altcoiners don't understand this, right? There's a reason the block size stays at the size it is. You want decentralization of nodes. If it takes 10 terabytes to run a node, the barrier to entry is higher. Therefore, it's less decentralized. 50% of the Ethereum nodes, they're all run on servers. Most of them are run on AWS. So Jeff Bezos controls the majority of Ethereum nodes. Why do they run on servers? Because most people don't have the means or the hardware to run the software. That's why Bitcoin is as lean as it is. It only costs you $100. You can even use an old computer to run a Bitcoin node. You can download Start OS, and boom, you're running a node. It's not supposed to be complex. When you add these complexities, even if they come, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Even if they're coming with really good intentions, there are unintended consequences to changing Bitcoin. And that's what people don't foresee. And I think that this debate is extremely healthy. And I'm really glad that, you know, Luke Dash Jr. threw his hat in the ring, and this is getting the attention that it's getting. And I think Knots is up to like 20% of the amount of nodes that are running. So I don't think the core guys expected that. And honestly, if you look at Satoshi's original idea of what he wanted, he thought there was going to be multiple versions of Bitcoin, right? And that never came to fruition. What came to fruition is there was core, really. But now you see Satoshi's thinking come into place because there's a disagreement in the community. And you do have a vote. You don't have a vote towards what the developers are going to do, but you have a vote in terms of what you are going to, what you can and what you will run, right? And that's a very strong vote, right?
Well said, Nico. I tell you, I
so
think that's a banger of a way to end this, because I mean, that's very good synopsis. Very well said.
I appreciate it. George, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Go Navy. Thank you for joining me. And hopefully I'll have you on again soon.
All right, buddy. Best of all to everybody out there. I love you, kids.